I do believe every single person is here for a reason,
Hmm.
and I think a lot of things happen for a reason. And to me, that includes the negative stuff.
Hey, empowered educators. Welcome back to the show. I'm your host, Dr. Mel. Today, I am finishing up my inspiring conversation with LaVonna Roth. We talked about how she got started with her journey as a keynote speaker, and we talked about what SHINE stands for. Today, we're going to talk about what you can learn from what's happening in your life at this moment, or things that you've struggled with during the recent days. We're going to talk about fireflies. We're going to talk about purpose, and we're going to talk about a whole lot more. So let's get started. Hi, friend. Are you ready to move into a leadership position? Do you have interests and ambitions that you want to pursue, but feel like you don't know how to take that next step? Maybe you want to start your own coaching or consulting agency. I'm Mel, and I help educators define their career path through correct mindset, knowing your options, and getting prepared for your career transition. I will show you how to level up your leadership skills, share your expertise in a new way, create impact on a larger scale, and put your leadership in motion. As an educator for over 20 years, I started to feel underused and like I had more to give. I knew when the time had come for me to leave the classroom and affect change on a larger level. Now, I'm ready to help you determine where your talents and skills mesh with your passions and interests. Put your leadership in motion and move into that next phase of your educational career journey. Let me help you define your career path by having the right mindset, knowing your options, and getting prepared for that next leadership position. So power up and put your leadership in motion. This is a great conversation, and I wasn't 100% sure where we were going to go because you have so much knowledge. And this is great. This is like a breath of fresh air, and it's a little different than where I've been. You know, God always puts exactly what you need in front of you at the right time and the right people in front of you at the right time. So your message is exactly what they need to hear, because right now, someone out there, someone in my audience is thinking, I don't know if it's the right time. I don't know if I have the skills. I just don't know.
Yep. Yep. No, I do believe every single person is here for a reason,
Mm-hmm.
and I think a lot of things happen for a reason. And to me, that includes the negative stuff.
Yeah.
Like I look at things that have happened, a lot of challenges, a lot of trauma that I've had in my life. And it's not fun in the moment. But one thing that I've enjoyed is spinning it in my head to go, but what am I going to learn from this? Right? What
Mm-hmm.
might be a takeaway, or what might I gain or learn about myself to be better and do better in the future? And I'll never forget my daughter texting me one time, and she was going through a lot. And she texted me and she said, I know I'm going through a lot right now, but I also know that I'll be stronger in the end.
Mm-hmm.
And I just wanted to like cheer, hug her. Like I probably sent a ton of heart emojis back, but yes, that's exactly it. And so we're not going to do anything perfect because there's no such thing. And we say this. Yeah, I call them mirrors. The mirrors come right back
Mm-hmm.
up, and we immediately start comparing ourselves to others and minimizing who we are. And I just think there's such beauty in recognizing that the value that we do bring, and then being able to share that with others. And so that's actually why we, and our logo, Ignite Your Shine, there is a firefly, and it's Flicker the Firefly. And Flicker the Firefly is for people to be able to see, any human to be able to see themselves and the way that Flicker is. And so Flicker
Mm-hmm.
represents shine, of course, but it actually started too because I learned a lot about fireflies and what had happened in the research about how when fireflies light up by themselves, they have a 3% chance of surviving. But when they light up together and they synchronize their lights, they have an 82% chance of survival. So they go from
Wow.
3 to an 82%. Yes. And so when I heard this, I was like, this is just like us. We bring our own greatness, our own
Mm-hmm.
individuality, our own shine to all that we do. But then when we synchronize that with what others bring to the table, then we shine together. And it's that synchronicity. And what we can do is actually unstoppable at that point. And then
Mm-hmm.
the last part that I heard too that really spoke to me, and this is why I was like, it has to shine. The logo or the mascot has to be a firefly, was
Right.
that when fireflies do synchronize their lights, they can be seen for miles and they attract more fireflies. And so when I think of us, as leaders and stepping in this, which would be everybody, I love how you said that. I'm a very big believer that everybody is a leader because if you impact others, you have led
Mm-hmm.
in some way. But when we talk about stepping into administration and that level, it's how do we support and bring our own individuality, our own shine in, but then get that to the masses? Because when we do that within our own office, to our own school, that gets to the community, and then I also believe it gets to the world in some way.
Yes,
So I think there's such,
absolutely.
I don't know,
I
such
love
strength.
that. Yeah, I love that. I didn't even know that that was a thing about fireflies. So, see, I've learned something today. I said earlier, and I don't even remember if this was before or I've done so much since I got finished with my day that I can't remember who I said what to. But I was talking with a colleague earlier about how just talking and having a conversation with others, you learn things so much differently and your perspective is different and you grow just from talking to others. So, you and I talking right now and the audience listening, even though they can't reciprocate and talk to us, they're still networking with us in a way and they're learning from us and we're bouncing off of each other and learning from each other. And so I love how you said that the survival rate is so much better. So I think the survival rate of being an administrator, because it's a hard job, being an educator is a hard job. But when
Yes.
you have someone in your group and you network and you build your network and you're the fireflies who work together, the survival rate of you being an educator is going to be so much higher, especially once you get into administration.
Yes, and then that carries you for you when you are in the leadership position officially,
Mm-hmm.
so those that I know some of you already are, but what's that? We call it the firefly effect, right? And so that's part of our whole piece that we want to create a firefly effect worldwide. But you don't have to think at a larger scale because when I think that I get very overwhelmed and like, wait, what are we trying to do? And no, this can't. But that's not what it's actually about. It's we never know how far out that will actually whatever actions
Right.
we take can be seen. But if you think of within your own school, though, and keep it there, and then that obviously will go because every single person who, when they feel good, we call it a human focused culture. When you create a human focused culture of putting your people first and building them up, you will get the results of what you want. But they're also becoming like their own internal firefly is being lit.
Mm-hmm.
And now they go out and they go to the grocery store. They go
Yes.
to the post office, they go home, and that's the firefly effect. It's not like one person has to be the person who changes the whole world,
Right.
but your world of where you are, because all of that
Mm-hmm.
affects everything else.
Yeah. And I'm thinking about that commercial. I don't even remember what the company is that did it, but like somebody does something and then that person or someone sees that happen and then they do something and someone sees that happen and it just continues. And I wish I could remember what the commercial was for, but you think about that and it's the same thing. You go home and you do something and someone sees that or your kids see how you handle something and that's modeling for them. And then they are able to continue on that path and do the exact same thing.
Yes. You just brought to mind and because everybody is watching, right? So
Mm-hmm.
I've yet to share this. This happened to me this week. It's kind of funny, but and it's funny, not funny, but it's funny. I was at the grocery store and there's a woman in front of me, and I could tell that having a hard time with just health and finances and things like
Mm-hmm.
that. And again, that's a very quick judgment on my part. But I had this feeling, and so she goes to check out and the card doesn't go through with the full amount, and the cashier had said to her, listen, you have 209 left, so you have to use a different card. Well, she's getting very flustered. I can see her very quickly escalating, and so she took the same card and she ran it again, and she's like, oh, and she literally like pulling at her hair a little bit, and she's like, it won't go through. So I just went up to her. I was like, do you mind if I like help? And she's like, no, not at all. I think she thought I meant the thing.
Mm.
And so all I did was tap my card because I was thinking,
Hmm.
okay, come on, 209, I can
Right.
cover that. And so she ends up leaving, and the lady behind the cashier and the bagger were like, holy cow, that was so sweet of you. Like, that was so nice of you to do that. Why can't more people do that in the world? And
Hmm.
I was thinking, well, I've seen other people do that for me,
Hmm.
and there's been times my card hasn't worked, or times
Right.
like, watching them help somebody else. Dr. Mel, the funny part is, though, it wasn't $2.09. Her bill was $209. And I didn't, it was too late. It was just fine. It was just fine. Right.
Well, yeah, they were probably like, wow.
That now I began to understand it, because how your phone can pop up a notification if
Oh,
if
yeah.
a charge goes through.
Hmm.
That's what happened. And I was like, 200, not two. Oh, no wonder
Oh.
they were so, yes. But I left there going, okay, clearly that was meant to be.
Right.
And second of
Exactly.
all,
Exactly.
if what she said, like, more kindness in the world. And so if I could have been a little firefly moment, in that, and have a little bit of a firefly effect for somebody else to see and be like, okay, I could pay for somebody else too, or I could do this
Hmm.
kind gesture,
Hmm.
or I could support somebody in another way, then that's what it was meant to be.
Right.
So,
Exactly.
but yeah,
Exactly.
I came home and
Exactly.
I
I
said to my
love
husband, I was
it.
like, you're not gonna believe that, right? He's like, wait, what?
That's so funny. I love it. I love it though. But yeah, and I've had people I was at church one day and someone bought a cup of coffee for me. We have this little coffee shop in our church. And so in between services, I do service directing sometimes and play keys sometimes. And so in between, because we have 2 Sunday services, we'll all go downstairs and we'll get a cup of coffee and mingle and talk between the services. And I was in line and I got up there and they're like, someone paid for your coffee. And I'm like, what? That is so awesome. And it was
Yes.
during a time where I was just struggling with a lot of things, some emotional stuff, and just that one little thing, that one little cup of coffee, it flipped my attitude a little
Yeah.
bit because I was not in a good place with my attitude and hadn't been for a few weeks. And that one thing is all it took, a $5 cup of coffee. And it's those little things. You don't know what that $209 did for that lady. But I guarantee you that she's not going to forget it. And probably your perception was right because again, God doesn't put you in places with people at specific times without a reason. So you helped her immensely. I am sure of it. And that is what we're here for. We're here to help others. We're here to serve. We're here to grow and teach and whatever capacity that is, whatever that looks like. Even
Yeah.
if you aren't a teacher, and I'm doing air quotes, my sons are not teachers, but right now, the age that they are, the adults that I am really proud of growing. And, as a mom, you're like, okay, did I do a good job? Because these people are crazy sometimes. And I don't like my one son, I'm not even sure he changes his clothes every day, but people will say, do you know what your son did? And it's always a positive thing. And that makes you so proud as a mom. And right now, I learned so much from my children because they model certain things for me to learn from them, which means I have modeled something somewhere in the past. I've actually done a good job somewhere in my growing these 3 human males that I'm not sure about. And so it's a good thing. There's always something positive that comes out of it.
Yeah. And that's a great example of what leadership can do too.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
Exactly.
But I have to crack up laughing because as a mom, it was one of the hardest things I've ever done in my life, or is one of the hardest things I've ever done in my life. It's easier now in adulthood ish sometimes, but just because you always worry, you always care.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
But at the same time, like, it's also the most rewarding thing I've ever done. And so I feel like, I think just listening to you describe it, I was like, oh, wow, that's kind of like leadership where you're like, wait, am I doing this right? Does anything make sense? Am I making impact in any way? And
Yes,
yet we always are, we just don't
exactly.
always get to see the fruit of our labors, so to speak.
Exactly. And if you're in the classroom still yet, you are modeling and teaching kids every day. And I don't just mean curriculum and content. You
Yes.
are modeling life skills. You are modeling all of those things. Again, we're back to whole person. So as a teacher, you're the mom, the nurse, the everything. You're the counselor. You are sometimes you got to be a friend. Even though you're a teacher and you're the adult in the room, you still have to be a friend sometimes in that capacity, even though you have to stay the teacher and the adult, the leader.
Yep. Yep. All those different roles.
Oh,
It's
yeah, absolutely.
amazing when you go
Absolutely.
into education how you don't realize all that
Right.
you can be doing.
Exactly. That's why we go home exhausted every day because we're not
Exactly.
just teachers, we're everything.
Right.
So give my audience, we have talked for a while. I love it. I'm probably going to get 2 episodes out of this, which makes me a happy camper. Uh,
Good, good.
so tell my audience, give them one last piece of advice, one last power surge, if you will.
I'm going to encourage those of you listening to really revisit back what was shared about shine and understanding that it's going to look different for you than for anyone else. And it should.
Mm-hmm.
And so I'm going to give you a little homework of thinking,
Perfect.
right?
Oh, I give them homework every time. So you're good.
Perfect. Then we're right on track. Even if you just need to think about it. But one of the activities I like to encourage, though, and this is when people especially are stuck, but start thinking of where you want to be, and especially as an administrator, where you are as an administrator, or where you want to be when you get into administration. And this works for everybody, but do the Venn diagram. I know you all know what a Venn diagram is,
Mm-hmm.
but on one side, put on the inside that circle, it's going to be specific to strengths. Like, what are you good at doing? And so when we talk about strengths, gifts, skills, and talents, some of it you are born with and given, but some of it you do have to develop. And so that's why it's an ongoing discovery. And I like to give myself, because I do this occasionally too, is I give myself a week to keep, oh, I forgot about that strength there. Oh, someone just complimented
Right.
me on this. And I forget because you put like a few in there and we're not used to thinking about our strengths. So we just
Mm-hmm.
put a few in there and that's it. But what would a family member say, or what would colleagues say, or
Yes.
what do they say? And so just give yourself a plethora of amount of time, like about a week, and just keep adding into that. Now on the other circle, so let's say the strengths are on the left, on the right, you're gonna put your passions. Like when do you find that you just talk and talk and talk and talk, and people are like, oh my goodness, they are not going to stop talking, right? Because it's that good. Or family says, is there anything else that you talk about? Like this is, we always
Mm-hmm.
say, like with my friend group, and a lot of us are educators, we say that we're not going to talk shop, and give us 15 minutes and we are definitely talking shop, like it is all
Exactly.
about education because that's what we have a passion for and that's what we love and that's what we
Exactly.
do. So paying attention, but even, Dr. Mel, you mentioned playing the keys. I'm a former piano player, flute player, piccolo player. Like, what are the things, like, I still love doing that. And so
Mm-hmm.
I don't have a flute or piccolo anymore, but it's been on my radar to get one. But what
Mm-hmm.
do I love about it? And deeper than just playing, what do I actually love about it? And so getting as specific as you can about your passions is going to be really helpful for what the third part that I'm asking you to do is where the Venn diagram overlaps is
Mm-hmm.
where do your strengths and your passions come together?
Yes.
Where do they come together? That's what we call the shine spot. And so it's really that's your like fulfillment, your happiness. And if you can live there, like I'll use the 80-20 rule just for kicks and giggles. So if you can live 80% of your time in that Venn diagram where they overlap, then that's like the joy that you get to feel.
Mm-hmm.
And you are thriving in that because it's not only what you're good at doing, but it's also what you love to do or at least enjoy to do.
Yes, exactly. And I talk a lot about that exact thing in my book, Educator to Entrepreneur. Even though you may not want to be an entrepreneur, it applies to whatever you're doing. Even if you want to work for someone else, work for an employer because you don't want to own your own business, it's all the same. You're still, what do you want to do? What are you good at? What are your passions, your interests, your skills, all of that? And where do they mesh to become the next thing that you want to do in your career for sure? I love
Yes.
it. I love it.
Good. So multiple resources there.
Yes, absolutely. Absolutely. And I drew the little Venn diagram. So I may get on Canva and whip up something for them and stick it in the show notes. So
Oh, perfect. There you
they have,
go.
so they have a
That's
little, because I'm also still a teacher at heart and I need to give you a resource. So I
Oh,
love
that's
it.
fabulous. That is fabulous. Well, good.
I'm looking at your shirt there, and the top part looks like the Florida colors. I do see some pink in there, but when you were like leaned over, I could just see the top, and it looks like the Florida colors, which is kind of where my colors came from because my boyfriend, he was from Miami. He lived in Miami for a long time. He's from St. Louis originally, but he's been in Miami for a long time, and now he's moved back here to St. Louis. So he is a Dolphins fan, and I loved their colors. And so when I was rebranding, I like kind of stole that color scheme and then added one more color. So I love your shirt, and because it's very close to my branding colors. And today I have on Cardinals. You can't hardly see it, but
yes, you do.
it is the opening day for the Cardinals. So every school around has Cardinal shirts on because it's opening day, and we're in St. Louis. So you better wear some Cards gear if you're in St. Louis today. So
I'll keep that in mind for the next time I'm in St. Louis.
Right. Now, of course, by the time they hear this episode, it's going to be way past that, but it's okay because it's always Cardinal season in St. Louis. So you always have to wear your Cardinals gear.
And next year you can be prepped too.
Exactly. Exactly. I'll just replay this next year at this time on opening day. So, LaVonna, tell my audience how they can connect with you.
Yes. So, of course, I have a website, igniteyoursshine.com. And then I am mostly active on LinkedIn and Instagram. And so it's my full name, I believe, on both at LaVonna Roth. And it's LaVonnaRoth. I usually say it's a capital V, but I'll hold off on that right now. So yeah, it's LaVonna Roth. And then for LinkedIn, it's Ignite Your Shine. So you can definitely catch us there. And then if you're on Instagram, for the company, it is at Ignite Your Shine now.
Awesome. But I will have those links in the show notes. So my audience knows that. So you won't have any trouble connecting with LaVonna. And I would definitely encourage you because she posts some great stuff all the time. I watch her on LinkedIn all the time and not so much Instagram because I'm like back and forth with Instagram, but you know how it is. It's a love-hate relationship with Instagram. I love it for a while, and then I'm like, yeah, I'm done. And then I'm like, no, I need to get back on there and that kind of thing. But anyway.
They're two very different platforms, so it works out.
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
I've really gotten, I'm sorry.
I was going to say, I'd love to connect with anyone listening and let me know that you connected from here, and then that way I know, and then I can tell even Dr. Mel, like, hey, a listener connected.
Wonderful. Absolutely. That is a great way to let me know because I sometimes wonder, does anything I put in the show notes ever get clicked on? Because I always tell my audience that, hey, I've got that stuff in the show notes. And then whoever my guest host is for the day, they're like, did anybody click? I don't know. I have no clue. So that would be great to know.
Yes. Let us know. Let us know.
Yeah, this has been a great conversation. Thank you so much for coming on the show. I have thoroughly enjoyed it, and I know a little bit more about Shine now. So I am super glad my audience was able to learn along with me today.
Well, thank you. And I learned with you, and any nuggets that we can share in our wisdom of having been down the road, a different mile marker than somebody else in leadership, then happy to support and help. So again, Dr. Mel, thank you for all that you do with making a difference and supporting those that are listening. And then thank you for having me on.
Oh, you are very welcome. Very welcome. I love what I do and I just want to do more of it. So it's awesome. It's awesome.
Needed. It is needed.
And for my audience, thank you so much for joining us today. I hope you were able to take away something that is going to ignite your shine and help you grow in some way and make an impact in education. Thank you again. I will see you back here same time, same place next week. Have a great weekend. Bye-bye.